Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the program. Our first guest of the morning is Sheilan Clarke. She is the head of communications at My Vote Counts. A very good morning to you, Sheilan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Okay, am I saying your name correctly, by the way?
Yes, you are. Thank you so much. I've had so many variations, so it's very nice to have someone pronounce it correctly at Shailen. Thank you.
Okay, great stuff. My vote counts. Let's talk about the organization. Who are you? When were you formed? What is your mandate? I also know that my friend's son is involved there, and that, of course, is Minhaj Jina. Know his dad very, very well. Obviously, we worked together back in the day on the Voice radio station. So, what is My Vote Counts all about?
So, yes, well, Minhaj is our executive director. Marvel Counts started out as a campaign actually in 2012. So, we are 11 years old this year. Yeah, we started out as a campaign to lobby against or to try and find information around the private funding of political parties. So we've been working around private funding for since the very beginning, and because it ended up being such a big task, it had to be formed into an actual organization. So we're a civil society organization based in Cape Town. We are a very small team. We're like probably 8 and 1 intern at the moment. So our main focus, of course, is uncovering or trying to uncover private funding information of political parties. We've since moved into public funding. This then came out into or formed into the various court cases. In 2018, we had the Constitutional Court verify a court order that deemed the Promotion of Access to Information Act unconstitutional, as the PIO Promotion of Access to Information Act does not allow for the disclosure of private funding information. At the same time, the Political Party Funding Act came into fruition. We also do work around electoral reform as well as inter-party democracy. So we are all about transparency, accountability, and making sure that we raise people's power, people's voices, and giving them the tools to do this and take it back to their community.
So clearly, you and the rest of your team come from a legal background. You have to be taking on this type of work.
While you have to learn all these things, we do have a dedicated team of lawyers, and we have some lawyers on our board as well. But we all come from either activist backgrounds, media backgrounds, research backgrounds. So we've got 3 researchers, so a party funding researcher, an electoral systems researcher who focuses on electoral systems, especially now the Electoral Act that's been enacted last month. Yes, which speaks to the inclusion of independent candidates. And we've got a researcher who focuses on inter-party democracy, which is quite interesting because this looks into how democratic political parties are internally, because that does have a bearing on the kind of politics that they bring out, and that affects the voters. So we have a dedicated team of researchers, activists, and some lawyers as well on our board.
Okay, the main focus of this morning's discussion obviously is looking into a policy funding law, obviously the elections as well. But as you've outlined what you're all about, I am taking advantage of, having you on in discussing other issues as well pertaining to the type of work you guys are involved in. Having said that,
Mhm.
when I look at what we're going to be discussing, I kind of wonder, how threatened the political parties are by an organization like yourself, because not only the political parties, but the funders themselves, because depending how large the funders are, they do then, the political parties then are very biased towards their funders, are they not? They will push the funders' agenda. So, what exactly are you pushing by way of this issue this morning? And of course, you want to respond to my statement regarding biasness and being a threat, possibly, or just not very well liked by the different political parties.
I am sure we are not well liked at all by political parties, but our main thing at Marvel Counts is we are all about ensuring greater transparency, greater accountability within our political and electoral systems. And if this means, lobbying or pushing for legislation to ensure that these things happen to the benefit of voters, then this is what we are going to do. So just to bring back to the issue, we yesterday launched an application at the Western Cape High Court where we are challenging certain aspects of the Political Party Funding Act. So the Political Party Funding Act is something that came into effect on the 1st of April in 2021. And this is a monumental piece of legislation that mandates political parties to not only keep record of every single cent that comes in terms of private funding, but also that they disclose this information on a quarterly basis. So we've had this for the last 2 years, but what we've been seeing in the last 2 years with the disclosures is that this legislation does need some fine-tuning in order for it to be an effective piece of legislation, because this knowing where parties get their funding from is essential information in order to have voters exercise their constitutional right to make an informed vote. An informed vote means having every single piece of information that you can properly assess who you are going to be voting for. And this then speaks to, making sure that transparency and accountability accountability is pretty strong, and make sure that this legislation is a strong piece of legislation. There are 4 key issues of this act that we are seeking to amend. 2 of those, we know that there are conversations around political parties who want the opposite, because right now political parties want to amend the piece of legislation to make it less effective. What we are arguing is we want this piece of legislation that's really great, but to make it even better, more effective. One of those things is that we would like the 100,000 Rand disclosure threshold. So anything above 100,000 Rand, parties should disclose to the IEC. What we are saying is that having this disclosure threshold defeats the purpose of disclosure, because what's disclosure? You must open up, disclose. So having this disclosure threshold defeats the purpose of disclosure, and thus defeats the purpose of the act. So we want this to be scrapped. However, parties want this to be increased. There's also an upper limit of 15 million Rand. So donors can only donate up to 15 million Rand in one financial year to a party. Right now, parties want that increased. We are saying that is extremely, extremely high, because what we've seen in the disclosures is that this then allows political parties to be heavily reliant on single large donors. And we've seen, for example, the United Manganese Kalahari, as well as Batu Trust. They've been donating millions and millions of rands, in single donations to political parties. And these are companies who are linked to the mining and the energy industry. We're also saying that all expenditure of all private donations, whether 10,000 Rand, 1,000 Rand, needs to be disclosed, because another thing the Act compels parties to do is, even if you got 5 Rand from John Edwards, you must keep that bank statement, you must keep that receipt, you must have it on the bank statement. You don't have to disclose, because it's not above 100,000 Rand, but they do have those receipts. So if you have it, let us see it, because 100,000 Rand, anybody can be influenced below 100,000 Rand. There's no evidence that suggests that it's only donations above 100K that carry significant influence, or only money above 100K ensures people make an informed vote. And then lastly, there's nothing in this act that speaks to how we deal with people who are related, because we've seen in the past, in previous disclosures, various members of the Oppenheimer family have made donations to parties. Who's to say that doesn't come from the same purse? There's also various companies linked to the businessman Patrice Motsepe who's donated. Who's to say that that is not coming from the same bank account? And in effect, if you tally it all, it can come up more than 15 million Rand, which is the threshold, which obviously breaks the law effectively.
Okay, Sheilan, we need to go for an ad break. When we come back, lots more to talk about on this very, very important matter. So please don't go away.
Listen to Salam Media.
Now
wants to let go of that feeling of closeness to Allah that we feel by the end of Ramadan. Ramadan is over, but that closeness doesn't have to be. The deeds most loved by Allah are those done regularly, even if they are small. So don't let go of that feeling. Give a small amount regularly and hold on to Allah's love. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nani. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savannah will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us.
The kitchen, the heart of the home, where meals are made and celebrated. Our go-to place for those freshly stuck pancakes early in the morning or for that late-night snack munchies. We are in there together, cooking, eating, and celebrating life together. Let's keep the kitchen a place that is shared by everyone, where we build stronger bonds and grow together. Sunfoil, Now We Cooking. Visit nowwecooking.co.za for recipes that everyone can help make.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:21 a.m. I am talking with a dynamic young lady. She is Sheilan Clarke. She is Head of Communications at My Vote Counts. We are talking about the policy funding law. Sheilan, welcome back. Okay, as we were talking early on before the ad break, you mentioned a few things which, for example, the Oppenheimer family, Patrice Motsepe, you spoke about large mining companies, making huge contributions, and there's no guessing who those contributions were made to, which political party it was made to. And then immediately what comes to mind is the Marikana tragedy. Surely these mining companies are making such large contributions that those victims, or Marikana should never have happened. I think that's where I'm going to. Marikana, the tragedy of Marikana should never have happened, knowing the type of donations the ruling party has been getting. We're talking hundreds of millions of rands. It is unforgivable. That's my one statement. My second statement then also brings me to a couple of months ago when the ANC didn't have money to pay its employees. How come? That's the big question. How come you're being funded by hundreds of millions of rands? Where has the money gone to? Why did you not have money to pay your employees here at Lutuli House in Johannesburg? So all of those questions come into play. And I guess this is what the funding is all about. Apart from pushing the funders' agenda, it is also about keeping that party alive, keeping it afloat, ensuring that the that particular party is totally functional. They have enough resources on board to make their voice heard. Your response
Yes,
to all
look,
of my long statements?
yes, no. Yes. Look, we are not saying that parties should not be receiving money. We need to understand that a political party is essentially like a business, and a business does need capital to run. They do need money to run. They have salaries to pay, rent to pay, all of these things. So it's not to say that we should not have money in politics. What we are saying is, and what the Political Party Funding Act should be doing is, we need to open up, the previous secrecy, this massive cloud of secrecy over money in politics, because it does breed opportunities for undue influence. Not every single cent is dirty money. It isn't. Not every single donor has shady ulterior motives, but it does breed an opportunity. So for us to ensure that this doesn't happen, or for us to, maybe can see the links. Oh, this donor gave this amount of money in this short period of time, and then not long after that, this happened in this community. Is there a link there? We should be able to see this. So yes, parties do need money to run. And just to come back to the whole mining industry, it's pretty interesting to see that essentially the mining and the energy industry is funding our politics. And that is something that we really need to think about in light of what you said about Marikana, in light of load shedding. I think my power is actually just went off now. In light of load shedding. So, I mean, these are things that we need to think about, because the money that parties receive should go to have political parties run in order to work in their communities, in order to serve us, the voters. That is where the money should go, not for their own benefit. And this is the thing. It needs to be to the benefit of voters. If it is not, then this becomes a problem.
Okay, I read somewhere that the EFF receive very well, the funding that they receive. I'm not quite sure who their donors are, but the funding doesn't run into hundreds of millions of rands. And I'm kind of wondering, they're pretty, I mean, they seem to have garnered 10% thus far of the South African vote. And I'm sure the elections will prove that as well, going into 2024. So I'm kind of wondering, if they don't get a big chunk of donation money, how are they able to run efficiently? Because they're very much in the public eye, are they not?
Yes, they are the third largest party in South Africa. And it's really interesting because in the last elections that we had, or the local government elections in 2021, I mean, of course, an election campaign can run them into the millions of rands just to put up the posters, the billboards, the ads, the T-shirts, and all those things costs money. And if you've had a very big campaign for the 2021 elections, yet for the disclosures, when we saw the disclosures, there really wasn't much that the EFF disclosed. So there are these things, but yesterday the IEC did launch, or did make public, the annual financial statement, so that in the quarterly disclosures, what we see is what the party received above 100,000 rand. And at the end of the financial year, which is end of April, in the annual financial statements, we should see a holistic view of every single cent, or we should see every single cent. However, in that already, it doesn't paint the full picture. And this is why, again, we go into court to ensure that, or to ask that every single cent become public, whether it's 5 rand or 2 rand, so that we can better assess and better answer the questions with evidence that you are asking, like how are they able to do all these great things, knowing you're the fourth largest party in the country, you're seeing all these billboards, all these ads, all this and that, yet you are saying you're not receiving this like large sums of money. So this is again why we're saying every single cent needs to be made public, so that we can make these connections and have these answers, because it's not a good thing to have this be clouded in secrecy, because again, it does raise red flags.
Okay, what about the independents? And we do know lots of independents are going to be coming on board come 2024 elections. And obviously our constitution has made that system, it's very easy to get a funder, or if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you can self-fund and, become an independent. How are they able to, survive? And do you look into their funding as well? Because obviously they're pushing an agenda as well. It might be a personal agenda. It might be someone that's very altruistic and they're wanting to uplift their own communities, which is great. But still, questions need to be answered.
Yes. So regardless of our court case, regardless of the political parties wanting to amend the threshold, the Political Party Funding Act needed to be amended anyway because of the Electoral Amendment Act that was passed in April that will allow independents now to contest in national provincial elections. Because in the current form, the PPFA doesn't really make provisions for independent candidates. It's just under the Promotion of Access to Information Act where it says that independent candidates as well need to disclose their funding, but it's not compelled by the PPFA. So this act will need to be amended to include independent candidates. This will then also mean that our scope or our mandate at Marble Council needs to be broadened as well to include researching independent candidates, which should be a bit tricky. But I mean, we also need to ensure that everybody comes to the table, everybody are transparent about their funding, and to ensure that whatever politicians, whether you're a part of a political party, whether you're an independent candidate, you are doing your work to ensure that your voters, the citizens, have a better future.
How confident are you that you guys will be able to push this through?
We are very confident. I will say we were in the Western Cape High Court back in 2017, and then of course 2018 the Com Court ruled in our favor, but this was for a different piece of legislation, but also for around political party funding. Thing is, we are very confident because we are saying that we need to strengthen this piece of legislation that is a huge deal. There's no other legislation like this on the African continent. So our case would seek to strengthen this piece of legislation that is to the betterment of South African voters, that speaks to a strong political system that upholds the Constitution, which is really, really, really important for all of us. We need to ensure that we uphold the Constitution. And our case makes a case for that, to strengthen and uphold the Constitution by ensuring that we strengthen this piece of legislation. So we are confident.
What sort of feedback have you received thus far from the media, from civil society, and more importantly, from political parties themselves?
Well, we've had very positive feedback, especially with other civil society organizations. So last year or the year before, we have formed a working group, a civil society working group around party funding with like-minded civil society organizations and other individuals who are passionate about transparency around party funding. We are currently like 30-something organizations in this working group who do similar work. So we have positive feedback from them. Of course, I'm sure parties won't be quite favorable to this, but it needs to happen. I mean, right now, because we filed the papers yesterday, so we're just going to wait on the court process. They have a couple of days to file their response, whether they're going to challenge it on or not. It may take more than 15 days, but just for now, we're just going to let the court process follow. And we also just wanted to do this just ahead of whenever Parliament will introduce the draft amendment bill, just so we know that we've got this in the works.
Okay, we'll be watching this closely. Good luck. And all I can say is please continue all the amazing work you guys are doing. My Vote Counts, civil society organization making the smaller voices heard is the way I see it. Good on you. Go well and God bless.
Thank you so much.
That was Sheilan Clarke. She is the head of communications at My Vote Counts. And of course, we were talking about this piece of legislation that they're wanting to push through. It's the PPFA. And we'll wait and see how that plays out in court and response from other political parties. They ain't going to be happy at all, let alone the funders. I think they're going to shy away. If we're calling for transparency, the funders are not going to be happy at all. Well, we'll watch that closely. It is exactly 8:33 a.m. News and Views right here on Salam Media.